Josh, what did I do before YouTube and Twitch? Lots of things. Mostly I was a teacher, then I was an actor for a while. I worked in theatre, I've been a party host at a trampoline park, I've been a weapons marshal on a paintball field, I was a mechanic on a go-kart track, I've done manual labour in a warehouse, I've done retail work in Toys R Us for a while. I was a self-defense instructor for about 3 years, so lots of strange jobs. Yeah, I used to teach kickboxing and karate, move boxes in a warehouse. The paintball job was fun. I really enjoyed the paintball job. That was a good company to work for. They treated their workers really well, and I had a really good boss for that. The go-kart mechanic was fun, fixing little 200cc engines. That was enjoyable. Teaching started off as a drama teacher, and I did drama teaching in some public schools and then some private schools, and then I ran some drama clubs in various levels of schools, and then I would do intensive training with professional or semi-professional theatre groups when they were putting on specific shows and wanted to grind certain scenes. And then I would do theatre work at shows like MCM and the European Games Expo, or Insomnia when that was a thing in the UK. And I've done theatre and stage shows and stage hosting, that kind of stuff. I've done lots of things, and I've been blessed to meet lots of very interesting people, and I've managed to learn a lot from them. I hosted the TEDx talk last year where Neil Newbon did his talk. He was lovely. Worked with Neil. I've been involved in events that he's been at a few times, and he's always nice. What is drama teaching? Acting. Teaching how to be an actor. World self-defense. I started off in Wadaroo-style karate and then moved into kickboxing. Wadaroo-style karate was fine, but I didn't think it really gave a lot of the practical stuff that I wanted to look into. Well, there are weird overlaps in knowledge between professions that most people wouldn't expect. So a lot of teachers that don't have life experience outside of the educational system suck at talking to people. And what I mean is there are what we tend to refer to as lifelong teachers, which means you've got someone that went to primary school, went to high school, went to college, went to university, and then immediately starts teaching. And that means that this person has never lived outside of the educational bubble. They've never experienced connections outside of academia, which means that you have someone who has gone from sitting in a classroom, to standing at the front of the classroom. And you end up with someone who just regurgitates all of the stuff that they knew was relevant 10 to 15 years ago. And that is a very difficult mindset to get somebody out of. If you have a teacher who has just come straight out of high school, straight out of college, straight out of uni, and then goes into teaching, they try and act like the teachers they had 10 years ago, which does not work. Instead, I find that some of the best teachers, and you guys can tell me if you agree or disagree with this, some of the most interesting teachers I ever had were people who went into teaching after they had done stuff outside of teaching. And they'd have stories. They'd have stories of places in the world they'd been and people they'd met and crazy weird jobs they'd had. They would have so many, and you would listen to those stories, and they would be incredible at engaging people's focus, engaging their entertainment. Normally it's the same with, I've always found it for some reason, shop teachers, woodwork teachers, mechanical teachers, any kind of teaching that requires like a physically active, mechanically inclined brain. Whenever you have those shop teachers, they are super interesting. And that's why I find those teachers so interesting. So what I've found about the crossover with jobs is jobs that have you work with people, especially a huge variety of people, end up producing people who are better at talking to people. It sounds silly, but that does happen. You have people who have experienced life outside. And when you have those experiences and when you have that variety of experience, you find that the way that you distribute information to people matters so much. Working with people is one of the hardest parts of any job. And you also get to understand that that person exists as a fully fleshed out person instead of simply a piece within what you see as a machine to educate and entertain you. If someone has, and I don't say this with any hatred to any teachers in the chat, if you have gone from mandatory education into... Hey, the shoulders dropped. Nice one. If you have gone from mandatory education into a position of power or authority where your job is to teach people whatever you are doing, the people you are teaching will know that you don't have any experience outside of what you are teaching them, which means it often feels like you are just a part of a machine that they are being churned through. When you have a teacher or any kind of person in a position of authority that you know has a huge amount of experience beyond what they are engaging with, you almost feel that they have chosen to be there because they believe it's where they should be, after doing the things they've already done. And there is almost this unspoken connection between you and them where you think, right, they're telling me this for a reason. Social experience and social understanding, life experience, matters a lot. Google used to have this thing they would call the airport test. If you have two candidates applying for a job, and both are equally qualified, ask yourself, if you had to be stuck in an airport waiting for a delayed plane, who would you rather be stuck with? Now, people might say, oh, that just means that you're giving jobs to people who are better with people. Yes. Straight up yes. And most people don't like hearing that. But that is a reality. That was the reason you stopped your teacher studies and went for something else. You felt going from school to university back to school would neither benefit me nor the pupils. Absolutely. Because you would not be able to give the information. You started at 37, worked your whole life prior, including the RAF. Nice one. You can say some of the people who have always been a teacher are awful. And I bet the kids appreciate some of the stories that you've got. And I bet you've also got stories that you can fall back on if the kids start misbehaving. You're like, right, you know what I'll do? I'll tell you a couple of stories from the old days. And suddenly they're interested. And then you drop a lesson into that as well. All right, guys, well done. That was good. That was very good. Do we want to do the armory again? Robe of Doan, gang! Oh, hell yeah, we've all got the robes. Check us out. Look at us donors. Absolute classic donage right there. Beautiful people all around. Shall we go again? We just reset. I think we've reset. Cool. Reset is done. Josh, how many water breathing spells? Not always one more. Look, if you're not comfortable speaking to people today, that does not mean later in life you won't be. We're all changing. That's very true. That is very true. One thing that I've noticed about, and again, I have a lot of respect for people that work in the educational system, but one thing that I really have noticed is educators that either do not have any real life experience within the thing they are teaching, or, and I find this happens more often and is actually worse, have any of you ever had a teacher that did the thing that they are teaching many years ago, and they still act as if all of their information is up to date and relevant? I've had that, and it irritates me to no end. When they're like, this is how the industry is. I'm like, no, that is how the industry was. That's not how it is now. Oh, but if you want to get a job in the industry, you've got to do this, and you've got to know that, and you've got to know the other. The last time you worked in the industry, the internet didn't exist. So let's maybe pipe down a little bit on telling people exactly how they do and don't have to be. Your advice is no longer relevant. Your advice is the equivalent of somebody telling you to walk into a shop with your CV and give the manager a firm handshake. That may have worked 20 years ago. It does not work now. And the amount of adults who will tell teenagers or early 20s, just walk in, give them a firm handshake and you've got the job. And make sure you call them the next day so you get the job as well. And make sure you check in. And we're like, look, every single job just needs to apply online. Everything is a massive online application. Academia is indeed a closed system. It can indeed feed on itself. That is true. You do get teachers and professors who approve each other's work and continue to do so in a way that just continues to, constantly approve and approve and approve and approve. It's not a good system. And it ends up producing students that are trained to not question what they are taught outside of that system. Good education should be about inspiring curiosity, not about enforcing dogma. But I definitely have opinions on the education system. Would I try hardcore WoW? It's super immersive to me. Probably not. I don't want to feel like a death is punished by having to restart the game. Oh yeah, the education system is definitely behind where it's meant to be and where it should be. Without a doubt. Partly that's by design. School is great at learning rote memorization. Like, if you need to memorize something, that's great. It's a great place for it. What is my opinion on teachers who behave adversarial toward the kids? You had a math teacher like that. I wouldn't want to pass judgment on someone's individual actions or choices about how they want to handle their classroom. Everyone has different experiences and different strengths and weaknesses. There is an aspect of understanding from any of them. So I wouldn't feel comfortable saying that's why that person does this. I don't know that person. There are teachers who have adversarial personalities who feel that there is a divide between them and the students, and their job is to pass information across, and that is all. And there are teachers who believe their job is to connect with as many students as they can and encourage curiosity. Why is it that academia professionals' ego fill the classrooms but empties the soul of the students? Oh, what a great line. That is a beautiful line. An ego that fills the classroom but empties the soul. That's a frickin' poem right there. Burn Toaster, that is a gorgeous line. Write that down somewhere and make sure you never forget that you said that. That is lovely. Professors are often people in positions of power, and they are taught that being questioned is disrespectful. Being questioned is not disrespectful. Being disrespected is. You can agree with someone in a disrespectful way. You can question them in a respectful way. Being questioned is not undermining your authority. That's what people need to understand as well. And Gallus says, you always respected teachers that were harsh and didn't care about the students' feelings. Life is harsh. Get used to it, kid. I mean, Gala, if that's what you took from school and if you feel that's been beneficial to you, then great. I would say that life can be whatever the connections that you have with the other person are. Life can have harsh moments, but I feel that part of the beauty of that is that we can find people who are able to support us through that. I think that, from what I've seen personally, a lot of people who have the life is unfair, get used to it vibe often revel in the fact, they almost enjoy the fact that other people have to experience the unfair nature of it. Because they did, and so others should too. I don't know if you guys have experienced that as well. But there's a lot of people in the world that have the attitude of, I suffered, therefore you should suffer too. Because it validates their own suffering, and if other people don't suffer, what then happens is they feel bad that, why was life unfair to them? One of the strongest desires is for the people that come after you to not have to suffer. If you went through hardships, sometimes people want to work harder to make sure other people don't have to go through those hardships. And this, of course, leads us to that saying of weak men and hard times and all that jazz. You know the old saying? Strong men create good times create weak men create hard times create strong men. You know, that looping saying that's been going around the place? I think that it is possible to have good times that don't necessarily create weak people, but instead create people who face different times of challenges. And everyone will say that they are living through the hard times. But it doesn't apply the same to everyone, because there's lots of people out there who are having excellent, incredible, fantastic lives right now, and they would say they're living through the good times. I think the truth is that different people and different societies create different experiences for different peoples within that society. Like, you can be part of a society that is struggling while people in that society are also not, if that makes sense. But one thing that I really do push back against is, if you have struggled and it has made you the person you are, you can either want other people to struggle so they become as tough as you can want other people to struggle so they suffer and that validates you, or you can want them to not struggle. And all of these have positives and negatives. I just think that overprotecting students doesn't help them in the long run. That's true, Gala. Absolutely, it doesn't help them in the long run. But hurting someone when they are still weak also doesn't help. The best way to train someone is to find the level of skill that they are at and then see if they can endure something slightly more more difficult. If you have never boxed before and you walk into a boxing gym and the instructor puts you in the ring with the biggest guy straight away and tells the biggest guy just to beat you up, if you don't win that fight, you can't just turn around and the instructor will be like, yeah, well, that's just how it is, get used to it. That's not good training. That is massaging the ego of the instructor and the person that got to do the punching because they want an easy punching bag. They want a one-way war. If you do want to prepare people, genuinely prepare people, to deal with an unfair world, then just treating them in an unfair way isn't always the best method of giving them the skills needed to require. Sometimes the best method is to explain to them the situations that they're going to be in, and then start to slowly show them techniques and skills to deal with those situations as it gets worse and worse and worse. Now, some people do learn by being thrown in the deep end. Some people absolutely benefit from the whole tough love vibe. And some people don't. That destroys some people. The question is, are you willing to change your teaching style to match someone's learning style, even if you don't think it's the best way to teach? If you see somebody is struggling and your response is, we're all going to struggle, deal with it, that may make you feel better, but it does not get the skills needed to the person who is struggling. Now, you might be right. You might actually be spot on 100% correct. Everyone is going to struggle. But when someone is struggling, the way that you then, help them, approach them, adapt to it, that helps them. And you are right, the world does suck. But if we continue to engage with systems by saying, look, man, it's going to be unfair, just deal with it, we're almost priming people to not only expect the system to be unfair, but if they get put in a position where they're in charge of the system, encouraging them to keep it unfair. Now, struggle doesn't mean suffer. That's very true. I think a lot of people think that struggling means suffering. It means taking on a challenge that you are unable to, overcome right now and learning the skills to be able to do it. It is totally possible for the strong men to create good times and then have struggle within those times that is not suffering. Because when you have the good times, you can actually choose the difficult that you want to get through. There are many people that have very comfortable lives that actively choose to do something difficult, something that they will struggle at, something that they will, push themselves for. So I think the ideal is to be able to live in the good times, which gives you the safety to be able to pursue a challenge that you find a struggle at the start that you get better at. Gideon says the safe space mentality has weakened the framework of culture a lot. We are correcting course now. It was an overcorrection. So believe it or not, I've spoken about this before. I absolutely believe that we do need safe spaces, but people have misunderstood what the phrase safe space actually means. A martial arts dojo is a safe space. It does not mean that you're not going to be challenged. It means that you are going to be given challenges, and if you fail, you are going to be able to recover. That's what a safe space should be. It should not be a space where you are never confronted with anything difficult. It should be a place where you can take on a level of challenge that is above what you are capable of dealing with right now to learn what you need to get better at. That's what it should be. Unfortunately, people have taken the phrase safe space and manipulated it to mean a place where my worldview and my feelings are never, ever confronted. It is a place where you should be able to take on difficult, dangerous, potentially damaging things and know that the support is there. That's what it should be. And that is why when I say that I want this stream to be a safe space for people, I do not mean that we never approach ideals that we disagree with. I mean that we are able to do them in a place that is respected and a place that is within the boundaries of human respect. I don't mind people disagreeing with me, but I don't want the disagreement to be seen as an excuse for blatant disrespect or direct kind of designed offense, if that makes sense. School should be the place where you can mess up. You know, one thing that I think schools have really damaged? I have so many students, or I had so many students, and one of their biggest fears was failure. If you are scared of failing, it often tells me that you have lived a life where failure has been mocked or punished or seen in a negative way. Parents about it, grandparents about it, friends, families, jobs, schools. Failure is treated as this blanket negative to be avoided. Failure can only come from an attempt at doing something. Failure is proof that you tried to do something and it did not work, and that's annoying. However, it should be seen as a way to improve, to learn from. It's almost like failure damages your GPA and thus in real life concrete ways. Powerman, that's failing a specific test. Failing the process to get to that test should not be a problem though. The test should see how many times you have failed and got to the right answer. Unfortunately, schools and parents to a degree have this thing where they make people feel bad for failing. And if you are made to feel bad for failing, you will want to avoid failure. And the best way to avoid failure is to never attempt anything. The fact that failure is seen as a weakness by the strong who will take advantage of you, yeah. If you make someone feel bad for doing something wrong, what you've encouraged them to do is not try. Some of the most well-adjusted and intelligent people that I've met absolutely love when they attempt something and fail at it, because that gives them data, that gives them a process, that gives them a place to start from or to change. If someone attempts something and it doesn't go the way they wanted it to, fantastic. We've got some data. We can work on something. Civ, welcome to the stream. Yeah, you live, you fail, you try again. Absolutely. I think, unfortunately, we do very much have a situation where you think struggling or failing in academic settings helps you learn to learn. Absolutely, that is true. Oh, Frel, that is one of the most prominent things people say. How many of you were smart kids in high school or primary school? How many of you, if you're in the UK, went to that thing called gifted and talented? How many of you were able to just kind of get the answers? How many of you never had to learn how to learn? If you never learn how to learn, you effectively in school get given work that is below your level of skill. You complete it because you already know how to, but you never have to learn how to learn. And when you never have to learn how to learn, when you finally inevitably get presented with a situation that you are not capable of dealing with, you do not know how to gather the skills needed to be able to deal with it, because you never learned how to learn. You've always just coasted by on doing the answer, finishing the work early, being told that you're so talented, if only you applied yourself. And that has created a huge amount of people who are unable to learn how to learn. The way that I often describe this, and I've told this story before, is imagine watching a theoretical race between two race cars, and one car immediately starts the race at 100 miles an hour, and the other car starts at 1. Well, the car that's going 100 is going to take off immediately, straight ahead. You don't need to help that car's doing great. So, you help the car that's going slower, and you give it the one ability that the other car doesn't have, the ability to speed up. And then it slowly hits 2, and it hits 3, and it hits 4 miles an hour, it hits 5, it hits 6, it hits 7, it's still going too slow. So it hits 8, it hits 9, it hits 10. Eventually, given enough time, that car that started slower because it has been given the ability to improve will hit 100 miles an hour. Now, it still won't be caught up to the other car because the other car has got, absolutely loads of room ahead of it. It's a massive advantage. But then the car that learned how to learn starts doing 101, 102, 103, 104. And given enough time, it will catch up to the car that started at 100. The difference is the car that started at 100 never got given the skills that it needs to actually go faster. It will only ever be at that level. It does not know how to speed up because it never needed to. And so you end up with a lot of people that have natural talent at something, people that are naturally good, that coast by on that skill, on that natural talent, and never learn how to improve their own skills. They never learn how to get better. They do not have the ability to level up. And I see that a lot with people who say, you know, I was always good at this and so I never learned how to get better. Josh, I'm an American. I need an American example. Freedom, Eagle, 2 football fields, 500 burgers, Freedom, Shark Week. Liquid Culture says, so they are NPCs. No, they're not. They're fully realized human beings in their own right with their own fleshed out lives, as we all are, but they never got given the information or the skills earlier in the game to be able to change. I know that might seem like an overcorrection, but I really dislike the whole calling other people NPCs thing, because I think it feeds into the world view of everyone individually as the center of their own world and nobody else matters. Anyone that I've spoken to who unironically refers to other people as NPCs seems to think that they are the only fleshed out real human being in the world and everyone else is simply a bit part in whatever choices they choose to make. It dehumanizes other people and it reduces other people to only surface level traits, and it ignores the fact that other people do have depth to them. But that itself links back to an older saying, we judge ourselves by our intentions while we judge others by their actions. If you intend to do something, you treat yourself as if the intention is enough. Whereas if other people intend to do something, it does not matter. All that matters is what they do. If we are going to judge other people by what they do, we need to judge ourselves by what we do. So I generally tend to push away from the referring to people as NPCs, because it leads into a combination of the dehumanization and the focus on individualism, which leads to a situation where we don't want to bother giving anyone else any level of time or focus beyond ourselves. But equally, maybe I'm wrong. It's totally fine and safe to say, maybe you're wrong. When people use AI 24/7, you kind of see them as an NPC, but they're not. People that use AI to do everything for them are not NPCs. They are people who do not have or do not want to engage with the skills to use it beyond that. They have been given a tool that does a job, and they want to use that tool to do a job. And to be fair, if you got given a tool that did the same job, why would you not use it? We do not want to be dehumanizing people, because that feeds into the us versus them mentality. First time watcher being hit by Socrates. We're just talking about philosophy, man. There are far more people in this chat who are far smarter than I am. We're just talking about the general vibes. Remember, you are the only person that experiences life like you do. But it does not mean that other people do not have fully fleshed out lives as well. I have known people that have put texts and messages through AI checkers to ask what the vibe of the message is, instead of just talking to the person. Now, and I've said this before, AI can have a use, but I think that when that use becomes a level of dehumanization, it becomes dangerous, because AI tells you what you want to hear. It doesn't tell you what you need to hear. If you want to help someone, tell them what they need to hear. If you want to help yourself, tell them what they want to hear. Because the purpose of AI is not to give you the best advice. It's to give you the advice that keeps you using it. And if you haven't seen the Eddie Burback video, where he just follows AI for like a couple of months of his life, do it. I think it is Eddie Burback, isn't it? One of the best creators, without a doubt. He is a brilliant creator that basically just follows what AI tells him to do for like a month. It's fantastic. How often do you think about the why am I here? Why am I me? As in specifically me. Nobody else could play a warlock as whelmingly. The person takes their entire draft and puts it through AI. People are losing faith in themselves. But does this loop back to the fear of failure? If people are taking works that they have created and putting them through an AI checker, is this because they fear failure so much that they want a computer system to double check that it's right before they go and do anything else? That's what they want to do. It's reassurance that they are doing the right thing. It's double, triple checking because they don't want to double triple check themselves. It's not just spell check. I would say it's more than spell check at this point. I would say it's meaning check. But what if we never had faith in ourselves to begin with? Then the worst way to gain it is by constantly making something else check and prove that you are correct. Because what you're doing there is you're taking away the element of the safe space of failure. If you never had faith in yourself to begin with, and you have to double check with something, an AI, that you are doing the right thing, are you allowing yourself to fail? Are you allowing yourself to go into a situation where you might not have the best possible answer already and just see if your answer is good enough? That's the danger. I feel that we're creating a very enfranchised, a very kind of focused culture where we are losing faith in the ability to say, I'm going to do this, this is good enough. But they're not running very important stuff without checking the final result. Gummy, absolutely, but people used to. I'm not saying that it was good or bad that they did. Let's pivot, please. What about when people try to be perfectionists and the idea of perfect is the enemy of good? Perfectionism doesn't exist. Perfect is the enemy of done. When people say they're a perfectionist, it often means that they bother with the minutiae so much that they're not willing to accept flaws before something is created. And if you're not willing to accept flaws before something is created, you will delay the creation of something constantly. When people say, I'm a perfectionist, I think what they mean is, I do not want to put out work that has any flaws, and therefore I will constantly keep double, triple, quadruple checking everything to make sure there are no flaws in this. But it can reach a point where it becomes stifling and you end up not putting out anything for the danger that there is a flaw in it. Because the thing that doesn't exist is always perfect. The book that you don't write, that you keep talking about, is the best story that you imagine. The painting that you don't do, that you keep imagining, has no missed brushstrokes. That project that you don't start, that you keep thinking about, will never fail. And when people say, I'm a perfectionist, what I generally hear is, the ideas exist in my mind because I do not create any flaws in them in my mind. Nothing is perfect. Things are as good as they can be and as good as you can make them within a realistic time frame. Be okay with a flaw. Put something out that you know has a flaw at some point. Can something be perfect if it can't endure an error? That's another way of looking at it. No, Tig, they're not. Put something out there that has a flaw. Be okay with your own flaws and your own ideas. Tig, quick question. You just said Andrew Tate is perfect. Is that a joke, or are you someone that believes that the advice Andrew Tate gives is good advice? Just need to work out whether you're joking with that or not. When he says, people say obvious bait, no, Taj, it's not obvious at all. It's not obvious bait no matter what, because the amount of people online that absolutely 100% do believe that is higher than you would like it to be. Whenever someone says obvious bait, I think you're forgetting exactly how popular these things are. I would hope it's bait, but unfortunately I've met so many people who 100% believe that. It's higher than zero. Yeah, it's higher than zero, which is a shame. I mean, if it was a bit, if it was a joke, then I think sometimes people need to realize that the context and the community that you tell the joke within need to find it funny. Nerd just said Andrew Tate succeeds because he attempts to speak to young men without shaming or humiliating them. Instead of getting angry at Tate's, people should ask themselves why there's a dearth of empowering message. I don't believe that. I believe he talks to young men in a way that continues them to be angry. I believe he talks to them in a way that tells them everything else is everyone else's fault and not theirs. And I don't think that it's the person that you should be taking life advice from. I don't think it's a person you should be inspired by. Let's just make this really easy. If you believe that Andrew Tate is a good role model, could you just say yes in the chat? Just make this a lot quicker. You don't need to say no, because saying no is going to flood the chat. But I'm just going to scroll down and see who said yes for that. Because you've got to put your yes. Okay, that's fine. We can just... Inju, just ban everyone that said yes. Zove says yes. Hang on, give me a second. I'm just banning loads of people. I don't agree with him, but he's filling a niche that's been ignored. Yeah, we do need more... we do need more people traffickers, don't we? That's definitely a niche that's been ignored. It's not a niche that's been ignored. It's a niche that's been manipulated into believing that they are now being attacked and they're being exploited because of that. He has some valid points, but why does it need to be all or none? Raz, that's a very good point. It doesn't need to be all or none. Unfortunately, you're dealing with people on the internet who need to support something wholeheartedly or not. Which is why I said, do you believe he's a good role model? Hang on, I'm just scrolling through. This is the easiest purge ever. This is very easy. Now, you know, hooked on a feeling, the danger with this is no one that is attempting to manipulate people is going to be 100% of a monster. What they will do is they will say very agreeable, very understandable, often very provable things. What will then happen is they will start to slip in the ideology that they want to encourage. You don't walk on and say, hey, I believe all this heinous shit. You walk on and say, hey man, it's difficult out there. And someone goes, oh, they are difficult out there, yeah. They are difficult out there. And they're like, you know what, it's got harder recently. They're like, yeah, you know what, it has got harder recently. And you're like, you know what, it hasn't got harder for everyone though, has it? And then you're like, what do you mean? They're like, well, you know, that person's doing fine, they're doing fine. It's just you that's kind of struggling with this, and us and this group that we've got, so we can stick together. And they're like, you know what, yeah, we should stick together. You slowly boil the frog. There's a level of cult indoctrination to it, which means that when people say to me, hey, he's got some good points, the danger with that is that you need to be mentally strong enough to differentiate good points that bad people say to bad people using good points to slowly lure you in. That's the danger. Which is why I said, do you think Andrew Tate is a good role model? Because personally, I don't think a sex trafficker is a good role model. I don't think someone who preys on people's insecurities is a good role model. But maybe that's just me. You can take some of the worst people imaginable and find that they will probably have an opinion that people agree with. They'll probably have an opinion that you agree with. Eric, as much as you might like the guy, don't run defense. This is not something you want to be running defense for. Eric just typed in alleged trafficker. Eric, you don't want to be defending that. Like, if you're a lawyer, if you're a barrister, if you're that guy's kind of legal defense, leave it for that. What you don't want to do is jump onto Twitch and be like, hey, just going to be, you know, defending the guy that's pretty awful. You don't need to do that, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of evidence. And Art Rose says, probably best not to talk about this topic on your stream. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It is a thing that we should probably avoid talking about, because you're going to get people running in going, hey, we should actually talk about this and talk about that and talk about the other. I think what they do is they hear people saying things that they agree with, and so they think, hey, that's a person that gets it. Oh yeah, loads. Heart, absolutely loads, without a doubt. I've always found it really weird that people say, hey, this person that is definitely a really shit human being, I'm going to jump on and defend them to make sure that even though they will never know that I defended them online, I defend their honor online against possible slander. Which is why I simply said the question. Say yes if you think Andrew Tate is a good role model. It's very simple. You don't need to say no. I'm pretty sure that no is the general standard of most people here. Do I still play Guild Wars 2 sometimes? I've not played Guild Wars 2 for a while, to be honest. After being hit with the Shadow or Fire spell, you have a chance to become immune. It's taking damage. I don't want to be doing that. And increase the damage done by your fire spells by 2%. Sweet! Reduces the cast time as you incinerate. I'm not bothered about incinerating, but I will use Ember Storm to increase this from 386 to 393. Fantastic. There we go. How long does it take to get to full level? Quite a while, to be honest. Quite a while. Dumbledore, don't do this. I'm not a big fan of the guy, but isn't it unfair to say he sex traffics when he wasn't convicted or had solid evidence? Again, I don't like him, but we shouldn't let our personal opinions of someone determine what we imagine as fact or not. Negative assumptions and positive assumptions aren't fair. He's not a perfect dude, but he's still a human. Okay, so this is a conversation that we can have offline. I have seen firsthand the attitudes of young guys and how they have been emboldened in an incredibly vicious and vindictive way. And they use the Tate said it, so it's fine defense. Therefore, what I've seen that man do is incredibly damaging to the psyche of young boys. And so I cannot in good conscience continue to support or continue to even hint at the possible endorsement of defense to it than that. This is definitely a weekend stream. You, as an individual, might be smart enough to understand that there is nuance to most things. But I also need you to understand that when you have seen legions of young boys becoming young men who are emboldened by the toxicity of the influences that they are watching, and they are using that to justify horrific treatment of who they see as lesser than them, I'm not going to continue to engage with ideas that I think are incredibly damaging and dangerous on Twitch. We can have a conversation in real life, but we can't do it on Twitch because this is not a political stream. It will do harm. And some people believe, and this is very important, that not calling out behavior that I disagree with is endorsement. And I do not want to risk the idea that people believe that I would endorse that man. Do we have the metrics on how many people these individuals have damaged, though? No, Bear Brain, because they didn't fill in the Google form that was sent out to them, so we don't have all of the numbers. We just have the general visions of what people think is okay and not okay with the rise of the manosphere. And unfortunately, what then happens is people that come to this stream with the kind of third space that I make are continuously, again, exposed to that kind of behavior and that kind of discussion and those kind of people that they don't want to be exposed to. This is meant to be a third space that doesn't discuss or endorse harmful ideology, which is why I'm just going to ban people that start talking about it. And people that come in and go, yeah, well, you see that we need to give this nuanced idea. We need to engage, we need to endorse it. Maybe we do, but maybe not here. Maybe there are places in other places that we need to continue discussing it. Maybe this third space right now is not the right place, because a lot of people use this as a place that they escape to in order to avoid the shit that's damaging in everyday life. And we just want to talk about Wet Ghost and play some World of Warcraft. And then other people come in and go, tell me your opinions on ideology. No. This is the place that we escape from. Sorry, this is the place we escape to. Lewis, why don't our insides itch? That's a good question. For the same reason that the itch sensation isn't actually generated on whatever part of your skin is itching. It's most generated in your spine because of all the nerves, which means you can actually get rid of an itch by scratching your back. Killer, the repedestrianisation of Norwich city centre. Well, people forget that traders need access to Dixons too. I agree. Tech, I completely agree. This is not the platform that we are going to 100% be any DM group. For level 34, Druid Feral. Is a Druid Feral? Can a Feral Druid DPS? We're about to find out. Streaming and teaching seems very similar. Yes, they are. Can I talk in iambic pentameter? I would need to specifically write down something that has 10 beats per line to be able to do that. Have we... I mean, can a Feral Druid do DPS? I actually don't know. Let's find out. Do you need a summon? Can I speak in Times New Roman? I can speak in Wingdings. Just give you some symbols. Right. Yes, let's go and summon them, guys. Let's do this. Can I speak more wetly? That was a third tier Patreon thing. What is a third space? Okay, so for anyone unfamiliar, there is a concept in sociology, the study of how societies work, called the third space. Now, the first and the second space are where you exist at home and at work. Home is normally the first space, work is the second space. The third space is where you go that is neither home nor work. So you could have something like the pub. You could have the gym. You could have a library. You could have a youth centre. You could have a shopping centre where you and your mates go and hang out. You could have anywhere where you are that is not where you work or where you live. And third spaces are normally where socialization happens. Third spaces are where you can hang out with your friends, where you can meet people, where you can become part of a group. Third spaces are where you get to socialize. Now, what's happening is third spaces are being massively reduced in real life. We're losing youth centers. We're losing libraries. We're losing the ability to just hang out in shopping centers because shopping centers are shutting down. If you imagine life in the 90s, the 80s, maybe even the early 2000s, there was probably quite a lot of places that you could go that were not your house or your work to hang out with people. We imagine this idea of, kids going to play on the park, which isn't something that happens as much anymore. Third spaces allow society to connect in a way that isn't where they live or where they work. Arcades. Imagine the arcades in the 80s. Let's go to, reset. Let's do library. Library first. But what's happening is we are losing third spaces. And the interesting thing about losing third spaces is people are finding them online to replace them. So is an MMORPG a third space? Yes. Yes, they absolutely are. Twitch is a third space. This is a digital third space where you get the socialization aspect of something that is neither where you live nor where you work, despite the fact that you might be watching Twitch while you're either at home or while you're at work. Because you want something that is not to do with your house and is not to do with your job, but does make you feel like part of a society, part of a collective, which is why we have thousands of people hanging out. That is where the third space is. So the issue that we're seeing now is that third spaces are being vastly reduced over time. We are, unfortunately, losing them. And what that means is, because we are losing third spaces in real life, and this is actually something I want to write a video on at some point, we are giving control of the third spaces we have access to over to whoever curates them. Because let's imagine that you went to the pub after work as a third space. While the pub is of course owned by someone, there is still a level of social expectation while you are in the pub. There are rules to follow. There is the community element of it. But with third spaces being online now, they are often ran by people who benefit if more people join the third space. If you have an online group or an online forum, it wants to provide a place for people, but it also wants to succeed, which means we are seeing the rise in people who benefit from keeping people in their third space. And often they benefit from keeping people angry. Can you think of any online groups or online societies that end up in a spiral of negative input, negative reinforcement, and suddenly you are not screaming into the void anymore. You are now with a bunch of people all screaming into the same void, and in order to be noticed, you need to scream the loudest. Which means that we end up with a society built in an online third space that is no longer regulated by general social norms, but is instead encouraging more and more extremist behavior, because that is what gets noticed by the people that were there before, and that's what encourages the people that are joining now. It is a feedback loop of negativity. Art imitates life, life exaggerates art. Therefore, the next imitation is an imitation of an exaggeration, and the next exaggeration intimidates things that's been exaggerated. It becomes a self-sustaining negative feedback loop. That is what I think the danger of the digital third space is. It doesn't just exist to provide someone a place to be, it exists to provide someone a place to be more. To push out, to shout louder, to scream louder, to be angrier. Twitter rewards posts that get engagement. Posts that push negativity and hatred get more engagement. The third space has become a weaponized digital battleground. It's used as propaganda for any team that want to use it. This is the danger of all of it. Have you guys seen this happen in your own life? Have you seen any individual groups of people that you know slowly start to become more and more extreme? I've seen it. I've seen guys that I've been friends with agree with a couple of honestly very agreeable statements. And then I've seen them start to agree with more extreme statements, and I've started to see more and more extreme stuff. And I'm like, okay, now you're a bit too far gone. Now you've pushed into it. Now we've lost you to that. Because you are now simply a recruit of whatever that third space needs you to be. And the third space is no longer serving you. You are now part of it. We can see this in a less extreme way. Imagine you go to an old English pub. A lovely old English pub. And you walk in and you're like, this third space is what I need. It's beautiful, it's lovely, it's ancient, it's got great architecture, it's got lovely drinks, it's got good company. And then imagine that you see someone in the corner, an old man who goes there every single day and stays there for 4 or 5 hours every day. Is he using the third space in a healthy, social way? Or has he become part of it? Is he unable to be intertwined from it? Has that third space become a crutch for him? I think that we see a lot of people who end up connecting to the third spaces in such a strong way that it becomes, that's a great way, it becomes more like a prison. And when we lose the third spaces physically, we have to replace them digitally. And now that we've replaced them digitally, people are able to meet as many people as they want, and they're able to start that spiral of pushing each other to be more and more and more and more and more extreme. And if you want to see an example of this, look at fitness influencers. Fitness influencers are more muscular, are more lean, are more extreme, are more intense than they've ever been. We call it gymflation. Gymflation is the idea that you must get bigger, you must get more ripped, you must be more impressive than the guy that came before you. Now, is it always bad? Are there good examples of things getting themselves into a feedback loop? Because whenever a third space exists, you want to be one of the people that is seen as the champions of that space. It's no longer about health. It's not about health at all. It's now about being the best. Almost any group, any society, any culture that prides itself on someone being better than someone else, or in any way has a level of competition to it, will end up with people who descend so strongly into that the competition becomes what defines them. It's no longer about overcoming your ego, it's now about overcoming everyone else. The looks-maxing community benefits from you being insecure. You know what? Consider this. The most information given on looks-maxing is actually drink water, eat healthy, and get good sleep. You know what? I agree with all that. Drink water, get good sleep, eat well, get sun, get oxygen, walk outside, all that stuff. That's great. And then you start to include stuff like, and then you've got to do this and that and the other and that and the other, and then you've got to be in a competition with people. What I don't see the looks-maxing community doing is encouraging people to be happy with themselves. And then, if they want to change, encouraging that. Do I understand you correctly that I'm accepting negative and stressful situations with people that are negative chatters so I don't risk creating an echo chamber? There is a balance to that, without a doubt. There is absolutely a balance. I need to make sure that I'm not curating my own echo chamber where people only ever agree with me, but I also need to make sure that I'm not creating a culture or a community that the people who have joined because they feel safe begin to feel unsafe. It's a balance of saying, I don't want you to be sycophants and agree with everything I say, but I also don't want to actively platform people who are actively trying to harm you. Does that make sense? I've got to find that balance of, you can challenge me, but I don't want to respect people who are actively disrespecting people who feel safe here. Because there are many people who feel safe in this community because of support that I have for various groups. And so I don't want those people to feel that they are now being pushed to the side. They are the good kids in school who never do anything wrong, but the bad kids get all the attention. Does that make sense? So yeah, that's what I was talking about, the idea earlier, is I don't want this to devolve into an echo chamber, but at the same time, I also don't want it to become a collection of question and answer times that is done in a disrespectful way. So having these discussions is an important thing to do, but it's also about not encouraging behavior that is actively harmful. And as they sometimes say, mercy to the guilty is cruelty to the innocent. So there are sometimes people who come in here spouting absolutely abhorrent ideologies. And at what point do I stop engaging with that? Because engaging with it is itself kind of mentally damaging to people who have suffered from it. Genuinely, do you see all of us as an echo chamber? No. I see a lot of people in here who are willing to respectfully disagree with my opinions as vital. You don't think you'd have the patience to keep things respectful, not in the quantity of strange messages you get. Oh, there's hundreds, thousands every day. It's incredible the amount of messages that this stream does receive. I mean, it's flattering, don't get me wrong. We can have a conversation about opposing views, provided that your opposing views is not about dehumanizing people or removing the rights. There is a difference on opposing a view of whether bin collection should be twice weekly or once a month with big bins, and what group of people do and do not deserve fundamental respect. And I think what happens is a lot of people come in here with the idea of, hey, I want to have a disagreement with you, but what they actually mean is, I fundamentally disrespect people in a way that dehumanizes them. I need you to validate me. I don't think that's fair. Could you repeat the line about mercy and cruelty? It's a classic line. I'm not sure who said it originally, but it says, mercy to the guilty is cruelty to the innocent. And sometimes there is this idea that consistent forgiveness and consistent grace extended to people who do not extend it to others is itself damaging to the people who have been harmed by it. Billiam, it's not on anyone but yourself to understand that using your free will to be cruel to another person can hurt everyone involved. Yes. Yes, it is. That's true. And I think that often people do come in seeking validation. It's very easy for me to turn around and just say to a group of people, you're completely right, I agree with everything you said. The version you've heard as mercy for the strong cannot come at the cost of the weak. I'd have to look into exactly how that relates to it. What about an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth? I think if we try and reduce down any kind of restorative or rehabilitation-based systems to we must engage in equal exchange, we end up prioritizing revenge over rehabilitation. And there is no easy answer to this. Because if there was, we would have found it hundreds of years ago. The very nature of that whole process can be contradictory in itself. And sayings can contradict themselves as well. Too many cooks spoil the broth, but many hands make light work. Two sayings that you can use at any given time that says we need more people and we need fewer people. The answer, I think, is we simply need a functional system that can adapt to each individual element that it's expected to adapt to. And I think a lot of people focus on the revenge and the vengeance and the vindication more than saying, right, what society do we want to be? Because I'm pretty sure there are many countries out there that have exceptional rehabilitation systems within prison that have a very low recidivism rate. But you would have to double check me on that because I don't have the stats to hand. I think at a large enough scale, people who are just constantly seeking revenge end up with this, again, self-perpetuating cycle. Because if someone offends somebody else and demands retribution and justice, and then they get it, someone who was close to or loved or cared for the person that was then unfortunately caught within that is going to themselves want to seek revenge and seek justice. It ends up becoming this consistent cycle where nobody feels that they have been treated fairly and everyone feels that they are owed their pound of flesh. Person A commits something terrible toward person B. Person A, gets punished for it. And then someone who is friends with person A thinks, oh, they didn't deserve that. I'm going to go and hurt person B's family again. And then person B's family gets into a beef with person A's family. And it becomes this constant cycle. The lines get blurred. And people want me, a Twitch streamer, to be able to say exactly what should and shouldn't be morally correct. I do not know. You're reducting to absurdity, Josh. Yes, I am art, because you're asking for deep philosophical, legal, and moral answers on a stream where I'm playing a warlock with 5 abilities. People very much want to be given the answers that they already agree with by someone that they want to agree with them. But if I have misinterpreted you, then please do explain, because I want to be able to have a chat with you. What's my favorite breakfast food? Crave cereal, although I can't eat it too much because it is so Moorish. You like when I disagree. It's good to understand the different view. Absolutely. I'm happy to have a different view explained to me. I'm happy to listen to it. Can you ask about productivity? I mean, you can. I can give you my best answer, but can't give you all the answers. What does Moorish mean? You just want to eat more of it. You need some more. You have a different view to you. I just disagree with the argumentation. Oh yeah, that's fine. And ultimately, there is no objectively correct answer, because if there was, we'd have probably found it by now. Hey, congrats, someone leveled up. How am I? We've discussed some deep topics. I actually agree with you, but I'm just a contrarian. Why? Because you believe that you need to give value to the conversation, and if you don't have anything to add that agrees with it, the way that you give value is by competing against it? It's okay to say, I don't have anything to add. The weekend crowd is definitely interesting, but I'm just going to stop platforming people that I just fundamentally disagree with. Why do you only use so few abilities? You don't need more abilities. You don't need more. This is all the warlock needs. Can you be mature without having any kind of humility? I don't know. Usually you can stay stoic, but sometimes it's hard not to get irritated or upset when disagreeing with someone. So when someone gets upset at me, I try to be patient. Absolutely, it's very important to be patient. It's very important to extend that grace to people and give them time. Just reading as many messages as I can. I disagree, you need more water breathing. That's true. That's very true. Also, it's totally okay to say, I don't know. I say I don't know a lot. Something that I think people really need to get into their heads and understand is that there are complicated topics that people will have complicated views on, and being able to have respectful conversations on those topics is an essential part of effectively a society growing strong and great and working with itself. But having those conversations needs to be based with a foundation of respect, understanding, and human decency toward the other person, even if you don't necessarily agree with all of their life choices. That's okay. It's okay to disagree with someone's choices and not feel that you need to attack them or belittle them. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to disagree on someone thinking that human rights are fundamentally different person to person, but it's very important to be able to have a middle ground, respectful conversation. And if you aren't able to do that, then why not? What prevents you having a conversation with someone that you disagree with? Is it because you disagree with their opinions and you find them so offensive and insulting that you don't want to engage with them at all? Is it because you cannot possibly comprehend that you are wrong in any way? You risk being the Dunning-Kruger guy. I mean, some people do base their views on being right about everything. Some people believe it's a personal offense if you prove them wrong, if you even suggest that they might be wrong. I'm wrong a lot, and that's okay. I think some people see every conversation as a conflict. They see every conversation as a win or lose. And we had someone in chat earlier say they're a contrarian, which means whenever they hear a point being put forward, they will instinctively take the opposing viewpoint because they feel that they need to. They absolutely need to be the opposing viewpoint. Every conversation is a debate. Every conversation is an argument. And if someone says something, it is your moral duty to argue against whatever is being said. It is your emotional validation to be the devil's advocate. The devil does not need you to advocate for him in every conversation. Sometimes it's okay to let the devil make his own arguments. You don't need to be the one arguing for him. I mean, have you guys ever met someone who absolutely needs every single time to argue against whatever you say? As a creator, you start to have problems with feeling alienated from the creative community as it grows bigger. How do you manage to growing so big with popularity? Hang on a sec. You will distance yourself from certain people over time. That is not necessarily a bad thing. That is just progression. It's okay to progress. You will find time and you will make time for the people that you want to continue chatting to and hanging out with. But goddamn, burn that guy down real fast. It's okay to want to examine things from every angle, but when you live as a contrarian, you make your personality, you are the disagreeable one. That's what people know about you. That's what people come to understand and learn about you. You are the one who will never agree. Already got it. Already got it. And unfortunately, when you make your personality, I am the one who will disagree with you. Could we do the cathedral, or should we try the armory? Right, cathedral's 36. Let's try arm. See how well we do with the cathedral. I've met people who base their entire personality on being the contrarian, being the argumentative one, being the one who has to have a different ideal, a different thought. And honestly, it is quite tiring to have to deal with those people all the time, because every conversation with them becomes, I'm going to argue about everything you say. Every step that you take in progress becomes a fought for moment. And honestly, that is just absolutely bloody tiring to deal with. People that pride themselves on, oh, I just like a good debate. Yeah, we all do. But not when you're trying to have a conversation and your entire personality becomes, I'm the one that will debate you on literally everything. Time and a place. You've got to balance it.